Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doron Gower, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm coming from KMS Lighthouse, which is a company focused on knowledge management and a technology solution which we've developed. And I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction to what we're working on, as well as inviting Hughes, who's one of our clients, to give a case study story of how they're really benefiting from the platform. So just to set the stage in terms of what is the challenge that we're coming to resolve, it broadly breaks down into these three boxes that we can see on the screen. That organizations need to be able to find the right answer, to be able to provide that at the right time, and of course be able to provide the right answer at the right time to the right person. And these three boxes may seem relatively simple, but in practice it's pretty difficult to achieve all of the above, and this is what we're aiming to help organizations achieve quickly and easily. In terms of the right answer, the picture really gives message behind what the challenge is. And you'll probably hear this from a number of organizations, and many of you will have seen this yourselves, that in terms of the right answer, there is a lot of documentation, there's a lot of materials that have been recorded, particularly in larger enterprises, but it can very much be in this type of format, that you have a library, you have stacks and stacks of materials, maybe some knowledge that's stored in people's minds, maybe printed out on desks, and be able to extract that right answer, not necessarily to find the right book, but to find the right answer within that book. So you need the information that's on page 27 within a manual, and being able to find that at the right time, the second component, and also to be able to present the right information to the right person. So different people need to have a different slant on the knowledge. So maybe a sales team needs different content as opposed to the technical support team or the retention team, amongst others. There are also those challenges of how it is that the customers are reaching different organizations. So broadly, we see that these four domains are the main areas that customers are reaching out. The contact center, obviously this has been the primary way for many years, but it's not disappearing, and it won't disappear, because those interactions that people want to be able to speak with somebody, they want to have a human contact, a human interface, and as well as the bots and other types of technologies are developing, that will always remain a critical component. And what we're actually seeing is those more important, more decisive, and even more critical and challenging types of interactions, they're becoming the focus of contact centers increasingly. Online interactions, so customers are being able to find those simple FAQs and other types of knowledge on websites, and that's becoming more and more critical as the years pass. Shops and branches, making sure that a client is able to receive the same information, the same answer to a question, whether they're going into the retail shop or visiting online or going to the contact center, that regardless of the channel that they're coming across, they're receiving the same consistent information, the same answers. And also from the organizational perspective, it's quite easy to build up different silos of information. So this is the system for the branch employees at a bank, whereas this is the tool for the back office team, and this is the tool for the contact center agents. So what we are very much proposing is to make sure that that's all aligned into one centralized platform, and we have a lot of experience in that. And then the fourth and final type of audience that I wanted to mention today is the distributed workforce. Sales teams or technicians that are out and about and need access to information from their smartphones or from their tablet devices. So they're able to answer the challenges. Maybe they need to know a technical step-by-step guide in terms of installation of a satellite or a cable connection, for example. Or they want to know what are the differences between different service plans and promotions that are available in an insurance company. Two really great use cases that we definitely support. In terms of Lighthouse, where I'm coming from, so I am coming from our innovation center, which is based in Tel Aviv in Israel. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to bring the weather with me, but I did bring the t-shirt. So Lighthouse is designed that in every interaction, everyone should be able to find the information and have the answers that they need, whether that be agents in the call center in the more traditional use case, other types of internal employees, or customers directly. But everyone should have that same accurate and consistent answer, and not only that, be able to find it quickly and seamlessly. And our methodology is, as you'd expect at a KM World event, is very much focused on knowledge management. So not being able to find the right file and the right document, but to actually have something that's consumable and usable. So small chunks of information that can be used during an interaction to really resolve it quickly and easily with the right information, so that there's no callbacks or need to return to the same type of challenge again. In terms of a little bit of background about KMS Lighthouse as a company, we've been named by KM World as the Promise Award winner previously for delivering on those expectations that we've set with our clients. We've also been named as a core vendor by Gartner in the CRM customer service space, which is where they position knowledge management. And one of the key areas that we've also focused on recently is these types of native integrations into other technologies. So to really empower those other tools with a product that's really designed as a knowledge management base. So knowledge management is what we do. So we don't focus on building out a chatbot or building out a CRM functionality. We're staying within that world, and that really gives us a great definitive niche and focus that we can really build out the best knowledge management solution. So I'd like to just show a very quick demonstration of the product, if I'm able to switch the screens. So hopefully this 3-button combination works correctly. And I did it. So here we can see an example of Lighthouse version 6. So this is the latest release of the product. And one of the key areas that we focused on is that it looks very much like a website. So in terms of being intuitive, welcoming, inviting for all of the different types of users when they're accessing the system, that's really critical for us. As training and onboarding, any way that we can reduce that is critical. So we have the search bar in the center. We have different navigation options to finding information as well. So the users have the two options available, different drop-down menus that are configurable, the user's name and space for their avatar on the right-hand side, as well as bookmarks, notifications, and recent articles which each user can view. Then we have the search bar. Of course, all the background images and color scheme can be defined to match up with our client's corporate branding. And as we scroll down, we can see a few different types of widgets that can be deployed on the homepage. And one of the really key methodologies that we build our solution around is that it's very much designed to be managed by the business team. So there's no coding or programming required to set up the solution or to set up homepages. It's all drag and drop, and to set up the actual structures of the content and the content itself. So we have different examples like breaking news or different credit cards that we can see different details of comparison between products, promotions, plans. In this demo site, we see these credit cards, videos that can be embedded onto home pages, different pictures and tables and so on. And then, of course, we have the feedback functionality to share the feedback and the conclusions that the users have with the content. We have the ability to search within the system as well, so we can see the autocomplete. I already prepared an example just to make it quickly and seamless. So how much is the minimum charge for the American Express Black? Press the search button, and then we get straight away to the search results page, and we have this section here at the top, which is called Get Answer. So the ability to see an instant answer to a question in no time. So we have the question, how much is the minimum charge? It's $2,500. I don't need to go find that right page, right document, and so on. And if I do need additional details, I can view the full digital knowledge article, so broken down into different tabs and fields, so it's very easily usable and consumable, broken down into these small sections where we can see the relevant information that we need. So really powerful and easy to consume this type of knowledge, all built on consistent structure. So as a user, once you've seen one credit card in this example, you know how all the others look and feel. So really easy to onboard and become familiar with it from the end user side, and from the content manager perspective as well, that rather than starting with a blank page each time, you know that the description goes here, the car provider here, the target audience here, and so on. And then we have powerful features like a glossary, so as you hover over different terms, you can see definitions, and advanced tables so that you can see different information based on the options that are chosen. And one final section I want to show in this brief demo is the ability that we can create different types of decision trees, so step-by-step flows, so we can go through a process, and based on the options that we select, we see the next question or the next option in the flow. So really straightforward and easy to use and consume from an end user perspective, and you're not overloading the user with information that they don't need. So if the answer here is yes instead of no, we get a separate follow-up action. So it really makes it straightforward to follow up with. And we can do these types of processes with screenshots as well. So another one of our clients, Kaiser Permanente, they have all of their core scripting verbatim wording that they have to use on every call, so they go through these types of flows with that information, and other clients put in their instruction guidebooks for how to use the CRM and other tools and systems that they need to be readily available as well. So I'm just going to switch back to the other view. Okay. And in terms of one final area that I wanted to mention is that KMS Lighthouse has partnered with KM World to launch a survey on the flow of information from different call centers. And here's some of the quick highlights we've shared with everyone here. A copy, anyone that didn't receive it will be happy to share over as well. And we see that onboarding time, we see that a lot of organizations are within that 2 to 4 weeks period, but we see with larger organizations that can really stretch to 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, even 6 months. And I'm sure that Berg will mention some of those types of training processes that were before and after Lighthouse. We're seeing that average time to respond to an interaction is pretty long at 11.6 minutes. So from the respondents, so it's very critical to be able to share those types of resolutions more quickly by providing powerful information, particularly when from the respondents we see that over 1/3 of the calls require an escalation or additional support. So being able to provide the answers to those challenges that the agents have on the first time immediately from the same knowledge base is really critical to reduce those escalations and the need for employees to ask a colleague, whether that be physically to go and ask their team lead, or to make another call and keep the customer waiting to receive the right information, or to call back again, which is always a nightmare from the customer experience level. And we see that being able to have that critical information readily available is the most critical challenge that was identified during this survey. So just one final slide from me, which is to give a bit of a background of a few of our clients. We have clients in a number of different industries around the globe, from banking, insurance, healthcare, logistics, telecoms, retail, a number of types of deployment of Lighthouse as a solution. And we also have different scales of deployment, so whether we're talking about tens of thousands of users or several hundred, depending on the use case. So some really interesting ones like VTB Bank, which is the second largest retail bank in Russia, where they've deployed both for their call center agents as well as their branches. Qantas, the airline, where the solution has been deployed for their frequent flyer club. NRG Energy, where all the clients are calling in if they want to enroll in a new plan or they need to make any changes. It's used on a day-to-day basis, and Kaiser Permanente is another really great classic example. And of course, we'd be happy to share more details at our booth during the event. So at this stage, I'd like to pass over to Berg Hughes to share the case study of how GE Healthcare has implemented and is using Lighthouse. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Doron. First of all, I'll ask you to forgive my voice. I was in the Philippines a couple weeks ago, then I get back to Milwaukee, which is where I live, and it snowed the first day I was back. I still haven't figured out why I went back. I think it's because I love my family, but it might be a better decision not to at this point. This little boy, I have him at the front of all the presentations I do with our call center team, because I think it helps ground us into who we are and what it is that we do. Because if you think about it, anytime that little boy is at a doctor's office, if he has to go to use one of our pieces of equipment that's manufactured by GE Healthcare, it's a critical moment for him and for his parents. It's a moment that's going to matter in their lives. Now, if you think about the fact that mom and dad took time off work to make that scheduled appointment with that MRI, what happens if it's not ready to go when he comes in? Now they're going to have to wait another week, excruciating, to figure out what's going on with their son. And dad's going to have to take another day off work. That helps us remember who we are and what it is that we do that's so critical. Now, if you think about who we are, we're a huge provider of medical equipment around the world. We're in 160 different countries. We've got 4 million plus installs. There are literally 3 patients imaged on GE equipment every second if you divide it out through the world. It's a complicated business. We have 4 different lines of business that encompass 25 different modalities of equipment. Everything from MRIs and CTs on the high end to patient monitoring equipment, incubators and things like that on the lower end. So equipment that runs from the millions down into the tens of thousands of dollars. It's a complicated, complicated business. So again, that's what we do. Who we are, we want to think about as being that company that's there for that customer in that moment that matters. The team I want to talk about today is our CARES call center team, which supports the US and Canada. So this is where medical providers are calling anytime they need service on their equipment. It's a 24/7, 365 operation because we always have to be there for our customers. The equipment is that critical. We answer about 400,000 phone calls annually. And this is where it really starts to get complicated. We've got those 25 different modalities of equipment that are divided under 4 different lines of business. each one of those lines of business has their own sets of rules. Then on top of the GE equipment, we also handle what we call multi-vendor service, where GE field engineers and GE remote technical support engineers will help service not just our equipment, but other equipment manufactured by Siemens, Philips, whoever it might be, that's in hospitals we have service contracts with. We have some extremely challenging client expectations, because when you're dealing with the largest hospital networks in the country, you can't easily tell them, you have to fit into this box. We have to figure out how we're going to work with them. And that means not only do you have 4 different lines of business, 25 different modalities, but you've also got all your customers who have their own unique needs and challenges. Now add into that a tightly regulated environment by the Food and Drug Administration, and the fact that any call that comes in could be a life and death situation. So if a CT is down, it can mean an emergency room closes and isn't available when an ambulance needs to get there. We get calls for anesthesia equipment where there's a patient on the table. We get calls for invasive cardiology equipment where the operation is happening right then. So I've managed teams of thousands of plus agents and almost 30 years in call centers. But this is by far the most complicated group, and probably the group I'm most proud of that I've ever worked with, because of how complex the work is, what a great job that they do, and also all of this that they're having to deal with day in and day out. At the same time, they know the next call that comes in could be life or death. So we had what we felt like was a good call center, contact center operation. We had really strong documentation in place. GE believes in quality management, and our QMS system is very strong. We get audited twice a year on that. Our procedures were tightly in place. We had a support central site, sort of like a SharePoint site, where all of our documentation was. We got our new hires up to speed in about 6 months, which, given the complexity, wasn't too bad. And we measure something called error rate. For us, that is any mistake that we make that impacts downstream teams from us, our field engineers, our technical support engineers, and ultimately customers and patients. And that was running at 1.6%. Again, we felt good about that number because of the complexity that we're dealing with. And for us, an error can be something as simple as forgetting to ask for a purchase order number or asking for a purchase order number when you're not supposed to, because any of that can impact the speed with which we're able to take care of that customer. So, gone the wrong. Yep. So then the challenges that we had, that we looked at, we said, we're doing well now, but how can we get better? And as you know, sometimes it's easy to go from underperforming to get up to good. But it's really hard to go from where you feel like you're performing well, that next move to exceptional performance. And the challenges we had, we talked about, each line of business formatted their procedures in their own way. Sometimes it was Word documentation, sometimes it was PowerPoint documentation. What it really meant, though, was we had documentation for auditors, but not for people on the phone who were trying to support customers in a difficult situation. And our agents didn't feel any ownership for that documentation. They looked at it as something that got in their way rather than something that was helping them. If you're trying to take care of a call in 4 minutes and get your customer back to taking care of their patient, you don't have time to sift through a 90-page Word document to find the answer that you need. Change control processes were really hard. We had to go through a number of different people when we needed to update a procedure. And very often from other interactive groups, we didn't even find out about that procedure. And at the end of the day, it just meant everything took too long. There was a great survey years ago that showed that the #1 resource most call center agents use is their neighbor. So you have one $12 employee advising the next $12 employee about your $1 million piece of equipment and $40 million service contract. That's not where we needed to be. And that's where we said we can get better, and we owe it to our customers to get better. So we said, what is it we want to accomplish? And initially, there were a lot of different things we had on this list of our goals. But we thought about it and said, let's narrow it down. If we can hit these 2 things, then we made a massive difference. Let's take our time to proficiency and cut that in half. I want people to be ready to go and fully proficient in 3 months instead of 6. And let's reduce our error rate from 1.6% down to 0.25%. And both of those felt like really aggressive goals when we started this process. So then we went out and said, who's the right vendor, who's the right partner to help us do this. And the first thing we did is we went out and found a partner for our call center operations, and we went through an RFP that was 20+ call center vendors. Went out and did 6 site visits, and then we brought 3 of them in to meet with executive teams, and ultimately we chose Teletech, who's now T-Tech. And part of the reason we chose them was because they showed us how we could change our training and change our knowledge management using Lighthouse. And for us, Lighthouse was incredibly important because we had to have a high availability platform. We've got to be there 24/7, 365. We can't afford an error. That means we need to have a system that's going to be up and ready for us all the time as well. And Doron showed you the interface. It feels like shopping on a website. It feels like being on Google. That meant we didn't have to train people. They loved using it from day one. The other thing about the KMS Lighthouse team is they had a proven record of success. When T-Tech showed us some of the implementations that they had done in very complex environments, we said, that's exactly what we need, and it's exactly what we need to do. All of the rest of this really boils down to what I would say is one thing. We took something that was really, really hard for agents, and through KMS Lighthouse and building a decision tree process, we made it really easy. And the results show what happened. Time to proficiency reduced to 3 months. We got exactly where we wanted to. And for us, we define proficiency as hitting an average handle time metric, as well as a quality assurance metric. That allowed us to accelerate cross-training across our lines of business. Remember those 4 lines of business I talked about? One of the things that was really a challenge for us was hitting our service level goals because you had to have people in this group and this group and this group, and they were all separate. Because of KMS Lighthouse, I can now cross-train them a lot faster. My whole call center became more efficient. Here's something that I think really changed the agent relationship to knowledge. They went from being consumers of knowledge to owners of knowledge. We got 1,000+ feedback submissions annually, or almost 1,000 feedback submissions annually from those agents. Those feedback submissions are any time that they think a process needs to be updated, any time they found it difficult to find something, any time they thought the way it was organized didn't make sense to them. They're saying, hey, this could be better. And having that group take ownership of that knowledge and say, this could be improved, it all goes to one administrator who filters it. She's got the governance for it. But it means that every one of those agents is paying attention. They care about that knowledge. They're not just looking at it or talking to their neighbor. They're really, really using this system. The most important thing for us, I think, is our error rates dropped to 0.11%. Our goal was 0.25. That means we went from 6,600 errors a year on 400,000 phone calls to 600 errors a year on 400,000 phone calls. That is a massive drop. And when you think about the little boy I showed you at the beginning of this, that's what it really means. Because for us, our goal is not to sell the most medical equipment. It's to make sure that we're making a difference in those moments that matter. And what all this means to us is that we are effectively making that difference in the moments that matter. And it has been a great journey. But the most important thing at the end of the day, the agents love the system. The customers are benefiting from the system. Providers are seeing the improvement. And patients at the end of the line are getting service more quickly.
The bottom one. Yeah, there we go. Cool, thank you. No, I like it this way. Cool. Yeah.
See it goes on the screen.
Sorry, I know we're standing in the way of free drinks, so apologies. There we go. I guess does that work? Cool, thank you. I'm Eric Storm. I'm with StarMind US. very excited to be at Knowledge Management World. It's the first time that StarMine has been here in just the last day and a half. It's been really great talking with a lot of people in this room, understanding some of your issues, some of your problems with knowledge management. And one of the things that I want to start with is StarMind is not a knowledge management system. Probably didn't expect me to say that. What we do is we take your knowledge and we create expert profiles based on skills and different types of documents that they've written or are talked about in, and we create a skill profile to make it easier for you to find the people within your organization who know the answers to the problem. We were founded about 10 years ago in Zurich, Switzerland. A mad scientist, Pascal Kaufman, he's a neuroscientist. He wanted to create a network for him to be able to talk to 50,000 neuroscientists across the globe. His friend, Mark Vontable, he's a computer scientist, and he designed the whole product. 5 years later, UBS was our first customer, and it's been a pretty crazy road for the last 5 years attracting customers across the globe. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the theory behind StarMine, not so much a demo of the product or that. We're in booth 407. You can come talk to us. We're happy to show you some of the specifics of the product. But there's a lot of sort of background theory into what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the theory is, nothing is going to be ever more powerful than the human brain, right? It's 5 times more powerful than the Google Deep Learning tool, and we are not trying to compete with that. In fact, what we're trying to do is take all the brains within your enterprise and connect them in a seamless way. So you've probably been talking to a lot of vendors this week. You have this problem at home with your organizations that you have this documented knowledge and you need access to it and you need to figure out what's going on. We believe that the biggest value is in the undocumented knowledge. So the knowledge that's in the brains of your employees. The 30-year veteran in research and development who one day decides to retire, and you end up having to pay that person thousands and thousands of dollars to come back once a month to sit in meetings to give back some of that information that he or she has. So StarMine is doing everything they can to pull that and extract that information out of your employees' brains and get that documented in a certain way. The biggest issues we find, right, are organizational silos. I'm sure this is something that you guys come across every single day. Finance doesn't talk to HR, doesn't talk to sales, doesn't talk to R&D. And there's different experts within those groups that there might be some cross-pollination with information that could help. Regionally, right, global companies, you have an office, even StarMind, right? We have an office in Zurich, in Munich, and as well as New York. And we sometimes, the information doesn't get passed across the pond in a 100-person company. So we know that that's a constant problem. Also M&A, most large enterprises are doing tons of M&A work, bringing in other organizations, trying to integrate those companies with theirs. Everything from an onboarding use case to a true knowledge management issue. We're hearing from companies that these are the largest issues in terms of sharing information. So real quick, we believe that our brains are more powerful than Google Deep Learning. We believe that 80% of the knowledge in your organization is undocumented, and your company is not leveraging the interactions that they have on a day-to-day basis within your organization, in your day-to-day meetings, to really be powerful and impact every employee. We feel that this represents the biggest potential productivity gain for companies since the Industrial Revolution. It's a big statement, I know. This is from my marketing team. But, if we believe if we can unlock a little bit of that, right, if we can give back a little bit of that knowledge, it could really change a lot for your company. And Gartner agrees, right? They think in the next couple of years, 70% of enterprises will adopt some form of AI, which could, obviously you see the numbers there, change the business value and give productivity back to your organizations to do things day to day and not searching for knowledge. If you're not adopting something now, if you're not looking into these technologies now, in 2 years, you're going to be behind the curve. Again, bold statement, marketing, but it's really true. And even these guys, KMS is doing some really cool stuff with AI, and you see a bunch of AI companies out there. I think it's the way forward, and we're trying to help you guys give back to your organizations using it. So what StarMine does, our goal is to unleash the human intelligence, right? So we create neural know-how networks based on the interactions with your employees through the platform. And we try to understand who knows what within your organization. And this is a typical implementation, right? The red dots are the experts. The other colors are the topics around those experts. And through the interaction with the platform, through our integrations with over 300 different applications, so your SharePoints, your OneDrives, your any sort of data store, Salesforce even, your HRIS platforms like Workday or SAP, Oracle, we can integrate with those platforms to learn who knows what within your organization to create the initial profiles, and then through interaction with the tool, we score people either up or down based on the topic that they've engaged with. This is basically an example of kind of the different topics and the different experts and how they may interact with each other. We're trying to create a brain-like structure. So if you come to our booth, you'll see we have these little squishy brains. And we like to call ourselves the corporate brain, right? We want to get as much information that is in your corporate, the corporate employees' brains into the system to behave like a brain itself. This is actually a true map of one of our customers where people are and where questions get asked and answered to, which we thought was pretty impactful. And it really breaks down those geographical walls. You see the lines going across the ocean, which is obviously a huge, huge issue for large global companies. And just a few use cases. These are 5 of our marquee customers. GLG, we were talking this morning, they actually use our algorithm to match experts with customers. If you're not familiar with them. Telefonica in Europe, their biggest thing was knowledge share between locations. And that's the use case that they brought us in for and we're solving. Nestle, they're using us in their R&D department. So they have, I think it's 15 R&D locations globally. They use us for knowledge share, right? They can pop questions out any time of day or night. Those questions get routed to the correct experts in whatever it might be, creating potato chips or creating a new flavor. And it allows for that knowledge share to happen simultaneously. Accenture is one of our largest customers in terms of usage. They are now a referral partner of ours, which is fantastic, but they actually use us to staff projects. So if they have a new SAP implementation, ripping out Oracle in Russian, they type those keywords in, they bring in the experts, they see the experts, who would be the best person to staff on those projects. They call those people and see if they can schedule them in. And then Munich Re, they just use us as sort of just a information tool, right? Get more information in, different claims that might come in that are very similar. They can go in and they can find, this claim was solved this way. We can just rinse and repeat. So it's been exciting. I'm here 2 months. These are some of our customers that outside of those 5. We're growing and growing and growing. And if you have any questions, you can come find myself or my team. We're in booth 407. I went pretty quickly, which is, I think, good for everybody. If you have questions now, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we can move on. Any questions? Yeah.
We have APIs to LinkedIn. One of the challenges that we are facing in our company is we have Workday as our HR tool. Mm-hmm. But employees are reluctant to input their information into Workday. Mm-hmm. So if there's a tool that connects with LinkedIn, I think that's going to be a powerful engine.
Yeah, so I do know that Workday can ingest data from LinkedIn. So maybe we have an integration with Workday. LinkedIn, I don't know because it's personal owned data, right? It's your personal data. Whereas within an organization, Workday, the company owns it, so there's no rules. But I do know Workday ingests data from LinkedIn, so maybe we could talk more. I remember speaking to you on the floor, too. Anything else? Yeah? Yeah, sure, of course.
I think there are several things. Number one, we did not put a big incentive reward program in place to do it. But we do require that they use the knowledge management system on every interaction. So if you went into our call center, you would see that on every phone call they're using the knowledge management system. And we met with everyone about how critical that knowledge management system was before we launched it. And it is also something that they see in new hire training when they come in the door. So they're interacting with it on a regular basis. And I think what we wanted to do was really build a fundamental relationship where this is your tool. If you were an engineer working on a piece of equipment and the tool didn't work, you would make sure you got the tool to work, right? And that's the way we wanted the team to think of this, and that's the way we talked about it, is if this tool is not working for you, then you're going to make errors, and we do hold them accountable. There's pay for performance in place that's tightly tied to the errors that they make. So I think from that standpoint, there's some incentive there, but really, we wanted to change the relationship and make them owners of it, and we talked to them about it a lot at the very beginning and talked about how this was their key tool. And I think that is what I believe led them to do those submissions more than anything else. Because if you think about it again, the tool you're using, if it's not working for you, if you had trouble finding the piece of information, if something's wrong there, you're going to let us know. The other thing that we get the submissions on is a lot of times we'll transfer to a technical support engineer downstream from us. And that technical support engineer may say, hey, this isn't the process anymore. So immediately the agent will go to feedback and say, I'm being told this isn't the process. What is the new process? So then we can get in touch with that engineer's boss, find out if there really was a process change, and put it in place. But I think, to me, incentives are one of those things that work for a little bit, but they're not going to work all the time. And what we wanted to do was really help people to understand they own this, and they're going to be as good as they make the tool. Does that make sense? Anything else?
Do you have a specific customer relationship management system that you use that works with this, or is that?
We actually, I think the good thing for us is Lighthouse has been CRM agnostic for us, which allows us to move very, very quickly. We talked about things like having integration with the CRM system, but then if you're a GE, there's a lot of security protocols you have to go through. You have to get on the cycles when IT is going to release. And if a process changes, I don't want to have to wait 3 months for an IT release cycle. So by having it stand alone, it made it a lot more functional. And we use a couple of different systems. We're using Siebel and Nuvolo. We're going to be moving to a Salesforce system next year for part of our work. So given that we're using multiple different systems and we don't really want to be beholden to our digital team for every time we need to make a change in CRM, we wanted it to be free and standalone. Anything else? Well, I think that wraps it up for us then. Oh, wait, I got a question. Yeah. Sorry.
Question on the Lighthouse, we talked about this can it be extended for a chatbot or an AI bot kind of stuff? Can it be extended?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key components of the solution is that we have a full Lighthouse API library. So we can connect our technology into other tools and technologies as well. So say, for example, we have clients that want to deploy the same knowledge in Amazon Alexa or in Google Home or in the chatbot, then they have that flexibility, very much like Berg was suggesting, that we are the knowledge base and then we can enable we're pretty much agnostic as to who our clients want to connect the knowledge base into. So that gives a lot of freedom from our client side and also from our side, that we're not tied in with one specific solution that we're bolted onto, that we can develop and focus on our domain of knowledge management and building out, making sure that we have all of the features and functionality that's necessary. So we have API for consuming the knowledge articles, for the search functionality, for the feedback functionality, across the whole system.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that's it now.